Hi everyone, it's Tracy from Temperance Tarot, and it is time for my April deck roundup and such. It's time for me to go through the decks that I used this month and see which ones are going to stay and which ones are going to go and how I like them and all that sort of thing. So let's start with the Game of Thrones Tarot, which I had to pull out because Game of Thrones came back on. I mean, let's face it, you have to use the Game of Thrones Tarot. Of course, I love this deck. This deck is going nowhere, and everybody and their brother has shown this deck, so I thought I'd try something maybe a little bit more fun to start off my video. And what I've done is I have gone through the deck, and I have pulled one card for each major character who is still alive, who is in the deck. And we're going to have a shuffle and see who ends up on the Iron Throne. So we've got Cersei is the Queen of Swords, who is actually sitting on the Iron Throne. We have Daenerys as the Empress. We have Jon as the Emperor. We have Varys as the Hierophant. We have Bran as the Page of Cups. And a lot of these people showed up in the deck more than once, and I just picked the one that I thought most was easiest to see and most looked like them. We have Sam as Temperance. We have Arya as Death. We have Brienne as Strength. We have Sansa as the Star. We have Tyrion as the Fool, and we have Jaime as the Knight of Spears. So let's have a shuffle, and according to this, who's going to end up in 3 weeks' time on the Iron Throne? Which of these characters is going to triumph and end up on the Iron Throne? Okay, I don't think my deck's right, because I doubt very seriously that it's Bran who ends up being the King of the Seven Kingdoms, but that's what my cards say. The next deck that I used in April is the new version of the Mystic Faerie Tarot. This is the new borderless version. I just happened to be visiting a local Books A Million and saw it there and just picked it up. Had no intention of getting it. I used to have the bordered edition, but it went in one of my previous deck purges. And I have seen a comparison, and I must say that I like this one so much better. I don't mind borders generally. I don't mind borders at all. But for this deck, the borders did overpower the images in the old version. They just drew your focus away from the character in the card and to the border. And yes, I like this one much better in the borderless version. Now the cardstock is really kind of strange, and I'm not sure how I feel about the cardstock. I think I really like it. It's a bit shiny. I don't know if that, yeah, that reads pretty well. It's a bit shiny, and it's very bendable. And you see it did retain that bend a little bit, so it's really not it's not the best cardstock I've ever had. But if Llewellyn's not going to go back to their very original old cardstock, which I love the best, please go back to that. This is probably would be my second favorite. It does feel like you could write on it with a magic marker and then wipe it right off like it was a dry erase board. But it also shuffles really well. So if I see how nicely it bends there to make a shuffle. It does a beautiful riffle and bridge. It really does. And then You know, when I bend it to riffle and do the bridge and then bring it back down, it's still pretty straight, so it's not holding that bow. So I actually kind of like this cardstock. And I like this deck. It does do that sometimes. Not close enough, but it moves very nicely. It fans really well. So yeah, it's very nice. And of course it's got this wonderful guidebook by Barbara Moore, and it has a story. Each of the suits has a story that runs through it, which I've always enjoyed about this deck. Another deck that I used in April was the Aquarius Tarot. This is an independently published deck. It was out of print for a while, but I do believe that she is reprinting it, the artist, and you can, if you can't already get it now, I do believe you can pre-order it on Etsy. And it's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone in a rather early 70s, late 60s type of, not quite like the Weight on Acid, not quite that far, but with a definite funkadelic sort of vibe to it, particularly when you've got cards with titles. The minors that don't have titles are just kind of, you know, recolored, not as garishly as the Albano Weight, but definitely more vibrantly recolored. And it's not Pixie's artwork, but it is a clone. You know, there's nothing new has been added to the conversation in this deck. It is a Waite-Smith deck. It's just been redrawn and had some funky titles added to it and some colors changed. But it's a very nice deck. The cardstock is, I would guess it's like Make Playing Cards standard cardstock. They're 300 GSM smooth, because I've gotten several other decks from Make Playing Cards and Printer Studio lately that are their basic 300 GSM smooth cardstock, and it feels very much like that. It's a very nice deck if you want a Rider-Waite that's not a Rider-Waite. And if you're like me and you're a child of the 70s, shuffle. Shuffles very nicely. It also has one of those tuck boxes that folds back a little bit further. Makes it easier to get the deck out. The next deck that I worked with is the Sacred Rose Tarot. And this is a vintage deck published by A.G. Bueller. Probably early 90s. Oh, maybe late 80s. Maybe middle 80s. I don't know. I don't have the little white book because I bought it secondhand without the little white book. But the deck is in pristine condition. And oh, don't you love it? Don't you love it? When the extra cards get in the middle of the deck. And then I also bought this particular, there are two books that go along with the Sacred Rose. This is the one that was actually written by the artist of the deck, rather than, there's another one that was written by a third person. This deck is going in my to-go pile. So if anybody is interested in a vintage copy, you know, with the better cardstock of the Sacred Rose Tarot, just reach out to me. The book will go with it. I paid more than $1 for it, but I didn't pay much more than $1 for it. It's just, you know, I have so many Rider-Waite. First of all, I have so many Rider-Waite decks in my collection already that I'm getting a little bit more picky about things that are just pretty much straight up Rider-Waite. I thought about the people look kind of alien to me. They don't have any pupils in their eyes, and it's kind of a creepy vibe, and I just don't particularly like creepy unless it's kind of cheesy creepy. This looks just creepy, and just to me. It's just, it reads fine. I mean, it was fine. I just wasn't, it's one of those situations where I just wasn't looking forward to pulling cards from it every day. And that's a pretty good indication that that deck is just going to sit in a drawer and collect dust, because I have so many other decks that I do look forward to pulling out and using every day. Now, it is a cool deck. It really is. But this one is definitely up for grabs, as well as this book. This is very old school tarot theory in this book, and that's just not how I read the tarot. Although the book does go into great length to describe the image in the card and what all of the elements in the card meant to the artist. So that's a really good aspect of the book. But it's just a little too old school, a little too esoteric. That's just not what I'm doing with the cards right now. So anyway, these are definitely up for grabs. Another deck that I worked with this month was the Lioness Oracle Tarot. And this is a really beautiful deck. It has that matte gold gilding on the sides. The cards are really big. They're kind of slippery. So they're not super matte, but you see how well that just spreads out like that. It's very nice. It's a big deck. It's a weird deck. The images to me, they just don't make sense. I can't read with this deck. I am discovering that I am quite literal. And I've actually known this for a while. I don't get nuance. I don't get hints. Just come out and say something to me plainly and in language I can understand. This deck does not speak a language that I understand. As beautiful as it is, every time I looked at it, I got nothing. I got nothing. And as much as I love the way these cards look and feel, I just don't see the sense in keeping it in my collection just because I don't want to let go of it. I think I'd rather move it on to somebody who can actually read with it. So this one's up for grabs as well. Just send me an email to temptarot@gmail.com if you're interested in purchasing this or trading. I am up for trades, but considering how many decks I've got, it would have to, there are lots of decks I already have, so I'm more inclined to sell it than trade it. But if you've got something interesting, I am willing to look into a trade. And the last tarot deck that I used this month, which I'm still using this week, for the rest of this week, is the Everyday Enchantment Tarot by Poppy Palin. This is my kind of deck, where the Lioness Oracle Tarot spoke too much in riddles. This one speaks to me in English, and I can understand what these cards are telling me. And I think that's just marvelous. They're very clear. Their meanings are they're just right there on the, I hate to say it, they're right there on the surface. They are right there. The meanings are just right there. And that's what I need. That's the kind of deck that's going to work for me. So yeah, I love this deck. I love reading with it. It is Schiffer, but it's this lovely matte cardstock. Yeah, I really love this deck. And the funny thing is, the book is fabulous, but I never use it. And I never use it because I can read so many different things in just one image that she's created here that I don't want to be swayed by her interpretation of the cards or her intent when she was painting the cards. I can get so much out of these cards that I want to just get stuff out of the images. So there you go. Love the Everyday Enchantment Tarot. It's fabulous. Okay, now on to Oracle decks. I did not use very many Oracle decks at all this month, but I do have 3 here to talk about. The first is the Spirit of the Animals Oracle. I had to get this one just because I think the artwork is so absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it is just some of the best art I've ever seen. So yeah, I got this one. I like it a lot. I generally will just pull a card and maybe sit it out on my reading space for a few days or a week or so, just to look at it and look at the message that's on the bottom of the card, just as sort of a reminder of things I need to remember this week, you know, patterns that I need to model this week, behaviors I need to model this week. So there you go. That's how I've been using the Spirit of the Animals Oracle. And you know, animals aren't my big thing, but I do enjoy the artwork, and I so love a puffin. I love a puffin. And the dragonfly that's on the cover and the bee are just gorgeous. I do think I could do without the animals that aren't actual real animals. Yep, the dragonfly. Yes, there's also a ladybug or a lady beetle, and I love those. I catch them and release them when I find them in the house. So, definitely another keeper. I have the Wisdom of the Buddha Mindfulness deck. I believe I did a walkthrough of this one, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But I have really been enjoying this deck as it's intended, as a mindfulness deck. Just pulling a card, looking at the image, and reading the message, and trying to take that advice to heart. So yeah, I like this deck a lot. Gonna keep it. Sorry, I'm losing the light. I need to get this wrapped up. The last deck I used this month is the Mystical Wisdom card deck, written by Gay Guthrie and art by Josephine Wall. And I never in a million years ever would have bought this deck. It came in my April Moon box, Witch's Moon box. Don't shoot me, but I do not like Josephine Wall's artwork. I think it's too busy, and I have a hard time picking out what's going on in it. And I still don't like the artwork. And the first time I did a card pull from the deck, I basically had prejudged it and sneered at it and said, no, this is going in the pile. It'll probably go to my local witchy store where they will sell it for me on consignment. But then I said, no, let's give it a shot. Let's do a few readings with it and see how it works. And it's one of those things where I don't particularly want to look at the art, but the art makes sense with the message, and the messages were just so spot on. So I'm going to hang on to this one for a little bit longer before I give up, and I got it. No mosquitoes in my house. Sorry about that. I'm going to hang on to it for a little while longer and try to determine if my distaste for the artwork will override the usefulness of the messages. I mean, that is just so not my kind of thing at all. And I know that there are lots and lots of you who love it, and I'm sorry, but I just don't like her artwork. And as the light fades quickly, there's one more thing I wanted to show you that I got this month. It's this crystal. I don't know if you can see it this way or this way. I keep buying clear quartz crystals looking for the one. And I think I've actually found it now. This one is, it's natural. The only place it's been cut is on the bottom so that it stands up straight, which I truly do appreciate. It's got some green chlorite inclusions here. It's got, it's a twin here, and it's got two more over here, and then it's got this little fella growing out of it that I absolutely love, this little thing growing out of it. But the thing that makes this the crystal I was looking for, and I don't know if it's going to show up. There it is. Seeing that big reflection in the middle of the quartz, there's an inclusion in there that gives me an amazing focal point for meditation. So that just about any way that I set this crystal on the table in front of me, that inclusion either looks very shiny and bright or looks very dark and black, and gives me an amazing focal point for meditation. Now, it doesn't show when I should do it this way, but when I have it this way, it definitely shows. So I think I have finally found my clear quartz crystal that is supposed to be helping me in my practice. And I absolutely love it, and I love the way it feels. It's got some striations on the sides. It's just amazing. So there you go. The light's going fast. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a fabulous day.